Janine and Klein sat at a candlelit table in a quaint restaurant, the kind of place where the soft music and intimate lighting made you feel like the world outside didn't exist. Janine's eyes sparkled as she recounted a story from her day, her hand resting lightly on Klein's arm. "I can't believe she actually managed to pull that off," Janine laughed, finishing her story about a co-worker's prank at the office. Klein chuckled, his gaze never leaving Janine's face. "Sounds like you had a fun day. You're always surrounded by the most interesting people." Janine smiled warmly. "It's one of the perks of my job, I guess. But enough about my day. How was yours?" Klein took a deep breath, glancing down at his plate. "It was good. Busy, as usual. But I've been thinking about something a lot lately, and I wanted to talk to you about it." Janine's smile faltered slightly. She knew where this conversation was headed. "Oh, what's on your mind?" Klein reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Janine, we've been together for a while now, and I love you more than anything. You know that, right?" Janine nodded, her heart pounding. "Of course, Klein. I love you too." Klein's eyes softened, but there was a determination behind them. "I've been thinking about our future. And I know we've talked about this before, but I really want to have kids someday." Janine pulled her hand back gently, her expression turning serious. "Klein, we've been over this. I don't want to have children. It's not something I see in my future." Klein sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I know, Janine, but I just can't help feeling like maybe you'll change your mind. I see the way you are with our friends' kids. You're so good with them." Janine shook her head firmly. "Being good with kids and wanting to have my own are two very different things. I love our life together just the way it is. I don't feel like there's anything missing." Klein leaned back in his chair, staring at his hands. "I understand that, but I can't help how I feel either. It's something I've always dreamed about." Janine reached out, touching his arm gently. "Klein, I don't want you to be unhappy. But this is something I'm very certain about. I want to have kids, and I don't think that's going to change." The waiter arrived, interrupting the tension with the arrival of their dessert. As the waiter left, Klein took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Let's enjoy our evening. We don't have to figure everything out right now." Janine nodded, grateful for the reprieve. "Agreed. Let's just enjoy this amazing dessert." Over the next few weeks, the topic of children seemed to linger in the air between them. It surfaced in small, almost innocuous ways, yet each instance carried the weight of unresolved tension. They'd be out with friends who had kids, and Klein's eyes would follow the toddlers with a wistful gaze. At home, he'd occasionally bring up the future in ways that subtly hinted at his lingering hope. One night, after a cozy dinner at home, Klein broached the subject again. They were sitting on the couch, Janine's head resting on his shoulder as they watched a movie. During a commercial break, Klein muted the TV and turned to her. "Janine, can we talk about something?" he asked, his voice gentle but insistent. Janine sighed, sitting up and facing him. "Klein, if this is about kids again—" "I just want to understand," he interrupted softly. "Why are you so sure you don't want them?" Janine's expression softened, but her resolve remained. "Klein, it's not that I don't love kids. I enjoy spending time with our friends' children, but I don't feel that maternal instinct to have my own. I have different dreams for my life." Klein nodded, listening intently. "I get that, but what if those dreams could include a family? Couldn't we make new dreams together?" Janine shook her head, reaching out to take his hand. "I'm happy with our life the way it is. I don't want the responsibility of raising a child. It's a huge commitment, and I'm not willing to make it." Klein squeezed her hand, his eyes searching hers. "I respect that, Janine, but it's hard for me to let go of my own dreams too. Can we find a way to meet in the middle?" Janine's eyes filled with tears, and she pulled him into a hug. "Klein, I don't want to lose you over this, but I can't promise something I don't feel." The weeks turned into months, and while the topic didn't dominate their conversations, it was always there, a silent specter. Klein tried to suppress his longing, focusing instead on the love they shared and the life they were building together. But occasionally, he'd slip, making a comment about the future that would bring a shadow over Janine's face. Klein's distance was palpable. Despite his initial attempts to reconcile, he seemed increasingly preoccupied and withdrawn. Janine noticed the changes but attributed them to their ongoing disagreements. One evening, Janine attended a company party alone, hoping to distract herself from the tension at home. The event was lively, filled with laughter and conversation. Janine found herself talking to a charming man named Lucas. As the night progressed, drinks flowed, and they ended up sharing a passionate one-night stand. A few weeks later, Janine began feeling unusually tired and nauseous. She brushed it off at first, thinking it was just stress, but when she missed her period, a sinking feeling settled in her stomach. She bought a pregnancy test and took it in the privacy of her bathroom. The 2 lines confirming her worst fear made her heart pound in her chest. She decided to keep it a secret from Klein, hoping she could figure out a solution. But as the weeks went on, the symptoms became harder to hide. Klein, always observant, noticed the changes. One night, Klein confronted Janine after dinner. "Janine, is there something you need to tell me?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Janine froze, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" Klein looked at her intently. "I've noticed you've been different lately. You're tired, you've been sick, and you've been avoiding me. Are you pregnant?" Janine's eyes filled with tears. Klein cut her off. "Janine, we use contraceptives every time. How could this happen?" Janine's anger flared. "Are you accusing me of something?" Klein's eyes darkened. "I'm just trying to understand. If you were pregnant, it's not mine. So whose is it?" Janine's face flushed with shame and anger. "It was one mistake, Klein. One night. I was feeling so alone and hurt. I met someone at the company party, and it just happened." Klein's expression turned cold. "So you're saying you cheated on me? And now you're pregnant with another man's child?" Janine's voice trembled with anger and desperation. "Yes, Klein. I made a mistake. But you've been so distant, and I felt so alone. You have to take some responsibility for that." Klein stood up, his face contorted with rage and hurt. "I will not take responsibility for your infidelity. This is on you, Janine. You broke our trust, and now you expect me to deal with the consequences?" Janine's tears flowed freely now. "Klein, please. We can work through this. I love you." Klein shook his head, his voice cold and final. "No, Janine. This is too much. I can't do this anymore. We're over." He walked out of the apartment, leaving Janine sobbing on the floor. The weight of her actions crashing down on her, she realized the full extent of her mistake. In the days that followed, the reality of her situation sank in. Janine moved out of the apartment they had shared and into a small studio downtown. Her friends tried to support her, but the sense of loss and regret was overwhelming. One evening, sitting alone in her new apartment, Janine stared at her phone. She scrolled through old photos of her and Klein, memories of happier times. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized just how much she missed him. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Claire, her closest friend. Claire took one look at Janine and knew something was wrong. "Janine, you can't keep beating yourself up like this," Claire said gently as she sat down beside her. Janine shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I ruined everything, Claire. Klein was everything to me, and now he's gone because of my stupid mistake." Claire hugged her tightly. "We all make mistakes, Janine. What matters is how we move forward from them." Janine pulled back, wiping her tears. "But how can I move forward when I feel like I've lost everything?" Claire looked at her with compassionate eyes. "You haven't lost everything. You still have friends who care about you, and you have the strength to get through this, one day at a time." Janine nodded, taking a deep breath. "I know you're right. It's just so hard. I miss him so much and I regret everything I did. Claire squeezed her hand. It will take time, but you'll heal. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe one day you'll find happiness again. As Janine sat with Claire, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to learn from her mistakes and rebuild her life, step by step. In the meantime, Klein tried to come to terms with the betrayal. He threw himself into his work, trying to distract himself from the pain. Despite the anger he felt towards Janine, he couldn't shake the memories of the love they had shared. One evening, as he sat in his empty apartment, Klein received a call from an unknown number. Hesitant, he answered, only to hear Janine's voice on the other end. "Klein, I'm so sorry for everything," Janine said, her voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to tell you how much I regret what I did." Klein's grip on the phone tightened. "Janine, I don't know what to say. You broke my heart." Janine's sobs were audible through the phone. "I know, Klein, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to move forward, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday." Klein took a deep breath, his anger softening slightly. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now, Janine, but I appreciate you reaching out. I hope you find peace." As he hung up the phone, Klein felt a sense of closure. The pain was still there, but perhaps now they could both begin to heal. Janine, on her end, felt a small weight lift off her shoulders. She knew the road to forgiveness, both from Klein and from herself, would be long. But with each passing day, she found the strength to keep moving forward, one step at a time.